This, I believe, is the best value drone that you can get right now from DJI. So I'm going to unbox it, show it to you, and give you an explanation as to why I think that this is the best value over the other offerings that DJI has right now. And it might surprise you, because it is not the newest, latest, or greatest drone from DJI. It's also worth noting it's from Costco. They have a great, what I think is a really great deal on this right now, and that's why I couldn't pass it up. So, the drone I'm talking about is this guy. This is the DJI Mini 3. And this is not the 3 Pro. This is just the 3, which is basically a dumbed down version of the 3 Pro. And it's missing some features, but it's also missing the higher price tag, which is why I think this thing really delivers from a value perspective. But to be fair, I've never tried this drone before, I've never used it, so I could be wrong. So for context, I used to have the DJI Mini 2 that I sold because it doesn't meet the digital ID requirements in the US. So because of that, I couldn't register it, and therefore I couldn't use it legally for commercial purposes. So anyway, I was able to sell that, and I was able to buy this, which does support digital ID. So I will say this was really a functional purchase. This is something that I bought because I feel like it serves my needs. It gives me everything that I need and not really anything that I don't need. The cool thing about getting this from Costco too is it does come with ND filters and a memory card. So that's an extra bonus. I don't know what those ND filters cost. You know, sometimes they're like 80, 90 bucks from DJI. So this is the Mini 3 camera combo or something like that. And this is the one that comes with the RC-N1 controller. And that's an important aspect of this from a value perspective. I'll talk about that in just a second. Okay. So we got the drone itself, the controller, and then in here is going to be all the accessories, including the ND filter and memory card, I'm sure. I've only seen this combination in this bundle from Costco specifically. So you got all your cables, extra propellers, screwdriver. This comes with a 64 gigabyte SanDisk Extreme memory card, which is awesome. And then these guys, which I'm actually really excited about. These are the DJI ND filters. And the reason why this was really a cool value add for me is because this drone tops out at 4K 30. And so I'll talk about that in a little bit, but basically having some ND filters is going to be crucial in the fact that I don't have to pay another, 80 or 90 bucks out of pocket. The fact that it's included, that was amazing. This comes with the DJI RC-N1, which was updated to OcuSync 3 with a firmware update. And then you got the drone itself. Which looks very similar to the 3 Pro. All right, so there's 3 main reasons that I think this is the best value drone that you can buy right now for my use case. Just to clarify what my use case is, I'm gonna use this primarily for real estate, photo, and video. So I'm doing a lot of short videos, I'm doing a lot of social media reels that require vertical video, and I'm shooting primarily at 4K 30. And with photo, I'm shooting bracketed images. All right, so the first reason why I think that the Mini 3 is a sweet spot from a value perspective is the camera. So let's compare where this sits between the Mini 2 and the Mini 3 Pro. So first of all, the Mini 2, you can't find that on DJI's website. There are some, used on the market that you can find. You can find them used on Amazon. The Mini 2 SE I've seen available through Amazon, but it's hard to find a Mini 2. But the Mini 2 and the Mini 2 SE, from a camera perspective, they have a totally different sensor. It's a 1/2.3-inch sensor, whereas the Mini 3 and the Mini 3 Pro is a 1/1.3 sensor. So you get a significantly larger sensor. I've never shot with the Mini 3, so we'll test that out, but I have shot with the Mini 3 Pro, and the photo quality and the video quality is significantly better. The reason that I think that the 3 versus the 3 Pro is a good middle ground is because the 3 Pro on DJI's website retails for $629 for with the same controller. So that's $329 more, doesn't come with an SD card, and doesn't come with the ND filters. And I had the Mini 2 and I've used the Mini 3 Pro, and the Mini 2 is kind of unusable even in golden hour, honestly, with that small sensor and the restrictions on bitrate. It's really hard to get usable footage if it's not daylight. The 3 Pro actually does pretty well. Once you get into kind of blue hour, the footage starts to fall apart a little bit, even with D Cinelike, which is 10-bit. You still can't really shoot in blue hour without the footage looking really grainy and really noisy. The biggest thing that I'm giving up going with the Mini 3 over the 3 Pro are a few things. 1, no D Cinelike. 2, the 48 megapixel mode. So editor David here, and actually the Mini 3 does have 48 megapixel mode. So quick correction on that, sorry, but everything else still applies. And 3 would be 4K 60. So first let's talk about 4K 60. I really don't like to shoot in 4K 60 on a drone anyway. I use a 24 frames per second timeline, and so shooting 60 frames, I would only do that if I want to use really slow motion, which I don't necessarily like to do with a drone anyway. I usually like to keep those clips moving pretty quickly. And so only the fastest I can shoot on the Mini 3 would be 4K 30. So if I did want to slow that down a little bit, I could slow it down to 80%, which would give me 24 frames per second, which is the sweet spot in my opinion. The only reason I'd want to shoot at a higher frame rate would be to bring down the exposure, and that's why having the ND filters included with this kit is so clutch, because that's going to allow me to keep my shutter speed a little bit lower. The 48 megapixel mode, to me, that's a bit of a gimmick. I've used the 3 Pro, and I really can't see much of a difference between that and just the 12 megapixel mode. I know that I think it's mostly kind of a marketing thing to be able to say that it's 48 megapixels, but it's really not a true 48 megapixels, at least from my perspective. So I never use that anyway, so I don't really feel like I'm missing out on anything there. The biggest disadvantage is definitely going to be not having the D Cinelike. I really liked using that on the Mini 3 Pro, which, by the way, that wasn't my drone. I was borrowing it from a friend. I really enjoyed shooting with that, and it does have a higher bit rate. I believe that it's 150 megabytes per second versus the Mini 3 can only shoot at a maximum of 100 bits per second. So that will be something that I'll have to experiment with. I plan to use this primarily for social media and things like that anyway. So I think that the decrease in quality will be less evident because of how I plan to use this. The other advantage that this has, the Mini 3 over the Mini 2, is the gimbal that can rotate to vertical and horizontal mode. That's something that I used on the Mini 3 Pro a lot more than I thought I would. I have a lot of clients that want highlight films shot in vertical, so being able to do that on the Mini 3 I think will be really clutch. Okay, the second reason why I think this is a great value is because of the controller that it comes with. So this is not the newest, latest, greatest controller by any means. This is very much a middle-of-the-road controller that comes with the RC-N1. The RC, the DJI RC that has the built-in screen, if you buy that with your kit, it usually increases the cost of the kit by about $150 or $200. And obviously the biggest thing that you're giving up going with the RC-N1 versus the DJI RC or the RC2 is going to be two things. One, OcuSync 3 instead of OcuSync 4, and two, not having the built-in screen. So let's talk about the screen first. I actually think I might in some ways prefer the RC-N1 and using my phone with it versus having the built-in screen for two reasons. One, boot up time. I feel like I can actually plug my phone in and launch the app faster than the controller, the RC1, turns on. So I actually feel like the boot up time is faster with this controller. Obviously not having the screen, I think in some ways that's definitely a disadvantage. It's nice to have an all-in-one. Sometimes it's a pain when you're using your phone to fly and then a call comes through or something like that. So having the screen on definitely has its advantages. But I'm oftentimes shooting outdoors and my phone, I have the iPhone 15 Pro Max, the max brightness is 2000 nits versus on the RC1, the max brightness is 700 nits. And it can be really hard to see that screen in sunlight. And so I usually end up, being in the shade or in my car, something like that. And then it's perfectly fine. But using my phone, even on a bright sunny day, I'm able to see the screen no problem. So that's kind of an advantage almost in that sense, being able to use my phone. It's also nice to use the phone because you can transfer footage and photos directly to your phone through that wired connection, and that's way faster in my experience than having to connect the phone to the controller and wirelessly transfer images. So if ever there's a quick clip that I want to get to post online or a photo real fast that I want to grab to send to a client, having my phone already hooked on, being able to transfer those images through a wired connection super fast is kind of an advantage in a sense. The other thing is that there was a firmware update for the RC-N1 that brought it up to OcuSync 3. The Mini 2 had OcuSync 2, which was fine, but you could definitely notice connection issues even if I'm sitting in my car flying or in the house flying. So all that to say, I definitely noticed, less than ideal connection with OcuSync 2 on the Mini 2. But using OcuSync 3 on the 3 Pro was great, and it was good enough. Obviously, you get some interference, if you're going behind too many buildings or mountains or rocks or anything like that. But it was good enough for my use case. I'm usually not too far away. OcuSync 3 was more than good enough. So I know that the Mini 4 Pro, I think, is now on OcuSync 4, which is, going to be significantly better. And for my use case, it's just not necessary. OcuSync 2 is plenty good enough. And the final reason, I've already mentioned it multiple times, but it's the price. Being able to get this for $300 versus the 3 Pro for $630 makes it just a fantastic deal. Less than half the cost. It's really hard to argue with. Now, what am I missing out on? I'm missing out on D Cinelike. That's the biggest thing that I'm a little nervous about, but we'll see how it goes. And then the other thing that I'm not quite sure yet that I have to test is the automatic exposure bracketing. On the Mini 3 Pro, you can do a maximum of 5 images per bracket, which I really, really liked. On the Mini 2, the maximum number of brackets you can do are 3 images. And on the Mini 2, having the smaller sensor and only 3 bracketed images, it just wasn't enough. There just wasn't enough dynamic range. I wasn't really happy with it. You really have to shoot at full sunlight and have as little of dynamic range seen as possible. So with the Mini 2, I really struggled, especially in certain lighting conditions, with the smaller sensor and only 3 images for the bracket, where it was hard to get everything in range. The Mini 3 Pro, however, with the slightly larger sensor and the 5 brackets, those images look great. I was really, really happy with the amount of dynamic range that I could get, even shooting photos at blue hour, even shooting at sunset, shooting into the sunset. still able to get everything within range, which is awesome. So I'm really hoping that the Mini 3 has the 5 bracket exposure, just like the Mini 3 Pro does. The other big thing that I'm giving up on the Mini 3 versus the 3 Pro are the sensors. The Mini 3 only has sensors on the bottom, whereas the Mini 3 Pro also has sensors on the front and the back. And having those sensors, the more sensors, the better, honestly. Being able to just send your drone up, especially when you're doing video clips, and just being able to watch your composition on your screen and not worry about side swiping a tree is really, really helpful. So missing that will be a bit of an adjustment in just having to make sure that I'm paying attention to where I'm flying, making sure that there's no trees around that I'm going to side swipe. That will be a disadvantage of the 3 over the 3 Pro, but again, for the difference in cost, I think it's worth it. Okay, the final reason why I decided to go with the 3 versus the 3 Pro or even the 4 Pro is because I plan to get another drone at some point, and I want to get either the Air series or the Mavic series. So this is a bit of a placeholder for me because I'm anticipating new drones coming out maybe even this year or potentially next year. So rather than investing in a Mavic 3 or investing in the Air 3 before a new model comes out, I wanted to buy the best value of something that could just hold me over for now while I wait for either the Air 3 or the Mavic 3 to decrease in price significantly, or maybe if the features are there for the newest generation, to just go ahead and invest in that. I think a larger sensor with D-Log would be ideal for my use case. But for now, especially with doing a lot of social media stuff, I think this is a great placeholder. So those are my thoughts on why I think the Mini 3 is an excellent value at $300 for the camera bundle that comes with a memory card and ND filters for only $300 bucks. 4K 30 is plenty enough for me. OcuSync 3 is good enough for me. 12 megapixels is good enough for me. And the controller connected to my phone is good enough for me. Like I said, this will be my first time flying this drone, so if you have any questions, you want me to test out anything, let me know. Be happy to answer any questions that you have. Thanks for watching the video.